So as I was writing it, I think you know this, I thought of Chris Pratt playing the character, but I knew I wanted somebody.
He was coming off of like Parks and Rec,
He was coming out of Parks and Rec, so he wasn't even, and he'd done Zero Dark 30.
Yes.
So I saw that. So there was that aspect to it.
If you're looking for content out there that doesn't bow down to the Hollywood ideology at the moment, I would highly recommend you watch this show.
Stay off my list.
Now, yesterday, I finished watching the last episode, the 8th episode of The Terminal List, based on a series of books written by ex-Navy SEAL Jack Carr. I'll be using some of his clips in my video review as well. This is not so much a review. If you know my channel already, or if you yet haven't subscribed, maybe you might want to consider doing that today. I tend to give a spoiler-free reaction more than an actual review, because doing a review of a thing that you're going to watch kind of defeats the purpose of why you need to watch it. It's not like the good old days of Barry Norman on film 87 or 78, whichever version of that program you watched on the BBC back then. Well, back then it wasn't the BBC. Now it is more like the BBC, with who they've cast as Doctor Who and who's going to be replacing Jodie Whittaker as Doctor Who. But my overall impressions about The Terminal List, well, what's really funny, I didn't even know this was a thing coming out. I didn't know Chris Pratt was tied to it. I hadn't even seen the trailer, folks. So when I watched this based on the Amazon Prime recommendation on their content creation list, I just thought, this looks interesting. I wonder what this could be like. Now, while I was watching the episodes, and I couldn't batch watch it in one go because I had things called life to get on with, there were all these articles popping up online. The Independent, which again, very cringy publication. James Gunn defends Chris Pratt as backlash against Guardians of the Galaxy star continues. It's insane, right? So James Gunn is defending his good friend, James Gunn is just defending Pratt about all the criticism that's been leveled at him, like his association with the Hillsong Church. I'll get to that in a second. The unsubstantiated claim he voted for Donald Trump in the US election, and a controversial post that he shared about his daughter Lila. So basically, he was talking about the healthy newborn daughter that he had back then through Katherine Schwarzenegger, but some people felt that he was weaponizing that remark against his son Jack, who was born prematurely, and he had to go on the defense on that recently. Now, as for the Hillsong Church, there is a very small article that I saw, I think it might be amongst this actually, where Ellen Elliott Page, whatever you want to address her as now, said that particular church is anti-gay. You could probably use that accusation or levy that accusation against any other church. I've been to Church of Hillsong a few times to be curious. I'm not religious, but I was just accompanying a wingman a couple of times. Actually, I went with him 3 or 4 times last year, and they were good. You can see all walks of life going into that church. It's not one of those traditional churches where you've got to stand up and sing a hymn. It's none of that. That's all done for you on the stage. Some of the sermons are hit and miss. Some of the last ones I went to last year were very much missed, so it's not perfect. I certainly did not see an anti-gay sentiment within the congregation of that church. So where Ellen Elliott Page gets her views from, or why she thinks that maybe something happened to her at that place. But then again, Ellen Elliott Page, if that's the way you feel, why do you go to church? Or did you just go to that particular Hillsong retreat because you saw and you heard things, or allegedly you heard and saw things? It's very, very weird. But getting back, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked there, folks, about the Terminal List. I can understand some people are thinking, right, this is not the Chris Pratt vehicle I came for. Don't forget, Chris Pratt was in Zero Dark 30. He played Justin Devgrew. He was awesome in that. He was just jacked up in that anyway. And a lot of people, including Jack Carr, noticed his presence in that movie. He's great in that film with Joel Edgerton. Absolutely awesome. I don't like Jessica Chastain in that film. She really overacts. But when it comes to the actual assassinate bin Laden mission. That part is perfect. It's really great.
So, and he ended up optioning it.
He's unapologetically patriotic.
He's a great guy. So great.
He's unapologetically patriotic. I know he's a dude.
Yeah,
you get that vibe. He's a dude.
He's just one of us.
And I like that about him.
Now, the plot of this series concerns Lieutenant Commander James Reese, as played by Pratt. And what happens? He and his platoon of Navy SEALs, most of them get wiped out. They're ambushed. Obviously, Reese is one of the last surviving members of that wipeout. In fact, he's the only one that remains surviving. And what you get is this conspiracy about forces larger than life, that they're using this new drug called RD4895. It's a drug that's supposed to prohibit PTSD, the encoding of brain trauma. It's meant to slow that down. So basically what happens with Pratt's platoon is that they've all been experimented on, including Pratt, with this drug. So you see the repercussions of that. What's the after effects is pretty interesting. When I was watching these episodes, like the first few episodes, you get this American Psycho vibe about it, which I thought was really interesting. To me, because the series relies on flashbacks every now and then, I was thinking about Peter Weller from RoboCop, the first and best of that movie franchise, where Murphy goes back to his former home and he sees his wife and kid in front of him. And I felt that this series was unintentionally going back to that, which I thought was fine. I had no problem with that whatsoever. You got a great cast in this series as well. You got Constance Wu. You've got Taylor Kitsch, who is just phenomenal. I love that actor. I thought for a while his career might be over after John Carter, that John Carter from Mars movie, but definitely not. The guy he's fantastic. Nick Chinland, you know him as Big Bad Billy Bedlam from the Con Air movie. Put the bunny back in the box. Yeah, he was great. Loved him in this as Pilar. Fantastic. Warren Cole, you've seen him in shows like 24, Uncharted 4. He was a real douchebag in that game. Jai Courtney, all buffed up to the nines. He's a bit of a chameleon these days, old Courtney. You can never tell it's actually him until much, much later on. So to find him on familiar ground again, because obviously he was in the first Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. He's terrific here. Sean Gunn as, well, I can't say who he plays here, but yes, James Gunn's other sibling, and he's terrific here. He literally bears his soul in this few episodes that we got him in, and he's fantastic. And then I've got to talk quickly about Jean Triplehorn. You know her famously for her roles in Basic Instinct and Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. I mention her specific films because she looks pretty normal in them. She's actually in her prime. But here is Madam Secretary Lorraine Hartley. She's had some facial work done, so sometimes she has a bit of trouble moving her lips up and down, but still she knows how to act. She still can act like a boss, and she's terrific in her role as that particular she's a very politically aligned figure within this very testosterone affair where all the men are concerned. The thing is that mainstream media is really happy to go after Chris Pratt, because he's a good dude, he's patriotic, he's jingoistic. But will they go after Antoine Fuqua, or as me and my friends like to call him, fuck you? No. And look, Antoine directed an episode called Engram for this series. He's a prolific filmmaker and documentary maker as well. He's a good dude, actually. I like a lot of his films. Brothers with Mark Wahlberg was a very good film. So, why don't they go after him? Because they won't go after him because you know what the reason is, right? And they wouldn't do that. But let's just go to the Rotten Tomatoes ratings here. So, the mainstream critics have awarded The Terminal List 37%. The average audience score so far is 93%. I don't think I can add my review. I've tried to do that. It hasn't given me an option to add my review, so I presume I can't do that anymore. Okay, first off on this Terminal List is Lupi Rodriguez Haas. The Terminal List could easily have been a more interesting 2-hour movie. The plot is overly familiar, borrowing elements from The Fugitive and Death Wish. It's funny that she will call Death Wish a classic because There's some horrible things that happen to women in that film, and besides, the character of Paul Kersey, played by the very based Charles Bronson, doesn't actually find the killers who murdered his wife and daughter, so I don't know why she would liken this film to that, or this series to that film. I kind of get it. The Fugitive, I kind of get it, but She's Forgotten First Blood, well, Sylvester Stallone, there was definitely an episode that felt very heavy, much like it borrowed a lot of elements from First Blood. Ollie Richards for Empire Magazine, what a shocker. If you enjoyed Jack Ryan, which I didn't, and Reacher, which I did, this is the show the algorithm would say you should watch next. Ignore it. Well, Ollie Richards will just ignore you because you don't earn your status as a top critic. Collier Jennings, and wait for it, the publication is But Why Thou, a Geek Community. Already sounds like a pile of shit in my books. Far too long, self-conscious for its own good, especially where series lead Chris Pratt is concerned. So in other words, you're not a big fan of Chris Pratt. Well, nobody cares. Roger Moore, not that Roger Moore, pairing Pratt with Kitsch and Wu just throws his limited range into sharp relief. No, Chris Pratt has to do some things, acting and physical-wise, that, you know, nobody else would want to do. And the action in this show is fantastic. I will say that much. Not right. Tessa Smith, Wealth of Geeks. Not completely horrible or unwatchable, but a series that is hard to recommend to anyone. If you enjoy action, drama, Chris Pratt, this one is for you. It would have worked much better as a movie. But why aren't they saying the same thing about Without Remorse with Michael B. Jordan, that Tom Clancy half-baked affair, which had a lot of its action scenes shot in the dark, and Michael B. Jordan was an okay lead as John Clark. He wasn't my John Clark, so I don't understand where they're coming from on that one. But if I go back to the 93% critical rating from people like me and you, and my internet is really slow today. Here we go. Okay, so Yashar has called it extremely predictable, nothing original. What is these days? Copied from 100 revenge and corporate evil plots. Yep, that's probably true, but it was still enjoyable. I wouldn't say this series is perfect. There are some things concerning characters where you know where they might be going towards the conclusion. So unfortunately, if I read into that, you're going to read into it too. Fun, action-packed, great, excellent fun to watch. Awesome action thriller with the best actor currently. That's probably true, actually, to a degree. This is the best TV show to come out in a while. Chris does an amazing job playing the part of a Navy SEALs commando, taking vengeance on those who killed his team. I was on the edge of my seat the entire season. I don't know what's up with the critics, but they're completely out of touch with the audience and reality. I watched it twice, back-to-back, great show. And that's from Andre C. Now, he comes up with a very good point. I would say this, if I had to choose between this, The Terminal List, and Reacher is probably my preferred series because, again, I like both Chris Pratt and Alan Ritchson, but as Jack Reacher, he's a lot more of a likable character. You know, he can have a laugh and a joke, and the way that he does things in that show, he's a lot more investigative. In The Terminal List, Pratt does, his character of Lieutenant Commander James Reese does some investigating, like data resourcing, but you've mainly got the character of Katie Buranek and Taylor Kitsch's Ben Edwards, who do most of the groundwork for his character. Chris Pratt's character is more like the brawn of the operations. That's what I kind of like about him. The fact that he can just reload a magazine without looking at the gun is a skill, man. I wish I could do that. But, if I had to pick one of the two, Reacher would probably be a little bit more higher for me. But, The Terminal List, if you're looking for content out there that doesn't bow down to the Hollywood ideology at the moment, I would highly recommend you watch this show. And if I were you, and if you were me, do not watch the trailer. Just go into this with your eyes wide open and tell me what you think. You might disagree with my take, you might actually hate the show, and that is absolutely fine. But from an action point of view, a storytelling point of view, acting, the writing, I thought it was terrific. I probably wouldn't go back and watch it straight away because it's a pretty heavy going series, but oh my god, there's levels of emotion I never thought I could reach in a show like this. It's a season 1, it's based on a series of books from Jack Carr, so we'll probably get maybe 2 or 3 more seasons out of this. And to me, this almost feels like Pratt is rehashing the character of Dev Gru from Zero Dark 30. I feel like it's that character getting his own story arc in this show on Amazon Prime. So folks, if you enjoyed this video today, make sure you give me some love, hit the like button, get your Uzi 9mm out and smash that subscribe button. And if I were you, and if you were me, do stick around for the next upload.